that. Like if I'm late, it's like a day or a couple of days, but it was like almost a week. I kind of feel like I didn't really accomplish anything. I was just gonna idea to find myself, y'all. Like, I was supposed to be in the presence of God. That's what I was supposed to be doing. Welcome to the channel. Welcome back. If it's your first time here, you're welcome. If not, welcome back. My name is Daniela, also known as Redeeming Daniela. If you see my eyes moving, guys, I'm so sorry. I'm new to this content creating thing, so I'm like looking at my laptop. The video will be broken down into 3: how I found out I was pregnant, and the emotions that surrounded me when I found out I was pregnant, my actual pregnancy journey, and then my last one is going to be postpartum, and then my childbirth story. So this video might be a long one, so just bear with me, guys. Okay, so oh god, this is like serious gist. And this is like serious gist. Okay, so I went to Nigeria. I was just like on the search for just something, like I just wanted some kind of peace, because at the time I was really going through a lot. We were working from home, and like at the time a lot of my friends, they lived far. So since we were working from home, they lived far. It wasn't like I could just like go over to their houses and stuff like that. I just really felt like very isolated. So I now booked my ticket with my refund check. I text my cousin, which you will see her in my Nigerian vlog. You guys could check out that vlog. It's going to be somewhere up here or over here. And also too, before we get into it, if you haven't, have you subscribed? I want you to be part of the RD gang. So definitely subscribe. But anyway, guys, so I go to Nigeria. I use my refund check and I buy my flight to Nigeria. So I get to Nigeria. At my point, I'm like 29. Last time to Nigeria, I was like 15. So it's been some time, right? And that time that I went when I was 15, I went with my siblings, my mom. It was like a family trip. And then this next time I'm coming like as a full-fledged adult. Like I was 29. So it was completely different. So I get to Nigeria, and I will say this: my cousin did not know that I was actually staying 2 months. She thought I was gonna be there for like 2-3 weeks, and then I was gonna be like out. But no, I actually was staying there for 2 months. So I am sorry, cousin, that I did that to you. So I'm in Nigeria, and if you see my Nigeria vlog, you'll see that in that vlog I was actually preparing to go on a date. So I was preparing to go on a date with someone that a friend of a friend, essentially, like she put us like in contact with each other. So I was preparing to go on a date with him. Him and I had been chatting, talking, like he was cool. So we go on the date, and then after the date, my little cousin, she texted me and was like, hey, where you at? And I was like, oh, I just like, pulled up to the house. The date was cool. The guy was cool. Yeah. So I was like, hey, I just put up to the house. She's like, oh no, come by. I want to say it's this Sheraton. I can't honestly remember, guys. We're just going to say the Hilton, because I don't know. I don't remember what the hotel's name was. She was there. She was like, you guys, you should come through. I was like, okay, cool. So I come through, and when I walk in there, she introduces me to her boyfriend at the time, and then her boyfriend introduces me to his friend. And so I was like, hey, nice to meet you. So we're all there just kind of gisting, talking, laughing, whatever. Afterwards, I kind of was just like, all right, I'm finna go home. So I go ahead and go downstairs, and I'm like trying to order Uber, but the Uber is not coming. So my cousin's brother comes, his friend, but he calls him his brother, comes downstairs, and he's like, hey, you still waiting for Uber? And I'm like, yeah. He was like, oh, like he was like, okay, just give me a few minutes, I can take you home. So he takes me home, and we like end up talking on the ride, and it was like really, really good conversation. He told me that, where he stays. So the next day we planned to meet up, and we were supposed to meet up, and then there was this ice cream spot that I had been seeing on Instagram that I wanted to try. So I kind of told him like, hey, can we go here? He was okay, no problem. We didn't end up going to the ice cream spot. We ended up doing something else. And that kind of just really started the fling, if I must say. So the other guy that I actually went on the date with, like I kind of just shift him to the side. And then me and my child's father were like hanging out a lot, talking on the phone, like Like if you honestly, it kind of I kind of had like a fake Nigerian boyfriend. Like I was Nigerian, I had a fake Nigerian boyfriend. Like that what was going on. So hang out, we go out to eat, watch movies, and so it was good. It was like it was really fun. So close to the end of my trip, I started feeling weird. Like my lady friend was supposed to come. Well, let me not say lady friend because that could be translated into something else. My my visitor, let me say that. My visitor was supposed to come and she was late. And I'm not really late like that. Like if I'm late it's like a day or a couple of days, but it was like almost a week. And I was like, this is a little weird. And then I kind of like started panicking. But at the time I kind of was going through like some stress because I was preparing to go back to America. And to be honest, I kind of felt like I didn't really accomplish anything. Like I was just gonna idea to find myself, y'all. I was like, I just been out here low key vibing, living life, eating suya. Like I was supposed to be in the presence of God. That's what I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be tarrying in the presence of God to truly get prophetic instruction about my next phase of life. That's really like, that's what I was supposed to be doing. And I was supposed to do it in a place where I know I can be relaxed. It's not so much pressure, all the American pressure. It's supposed to just be, I just want to just sit down and find myself. But no, guys, I was finding myself doing other things, if you know what I mean. So my visitor is like late, and then I feel funny. I started like having like a weird taste in my mouth, and then I was sleeping a lot. So that last week that I was there, I met up with my friend Ife, and so I'm like, yo, Ife, I feel like tired, I feel this, that. She's like, Danielle, I don't know. And I'm like, I hope I'm not, because that same day that I met up with Ife, that night I was supposed to meet up with my child's father. Well, I didn't know my child's father at the time, but I was supposed to meet up with him. So he came to meet me, picked me up, and then we ended up, going on a date. We had a really good time. So now it's like the week that I'm supposed to leave, and my visitor still hasn't come. I'm on the phone with my best friend Diamonds, and I'm like, yo, I think that I'm pregnant. And she's just like, okay, well, just go ahead and let him know. And I'm like, girl, if I am, I cannot keep this baby. Like, and she, like, one thing about my friend Diamonds is that my sis she down for whatever. Like, what you want to do, I'm gonna support you. You want to keep it, cool. If you don't, cool. At that time, I really wasn't sure. So I now basically talk to my younger cousin, which this is actually very embarrassing, because my younger cousin, guys, is like the age of my little sister. So it actually, like, now that I look at it in retrospect, it's actually kind of embarrassing that I was like 29 and I got pregnant, but whatever, it's my story, so it is what it is. So I asked my younger cousin if she can take me to go like get a test. So I took a pregnancy test, but it was like I was like a week, like maybe about a week late. So it was like the line was so faded, and I just was like, I don't really know. So my friend Ife was like, the only way you would really know is if you take a blood test. So I'm like, oh gosh. So my cousin takes me to go do the blood test, and it comes back positive that I was pregnant. And at this point, I am sitting in the car. I will never forget this. I'm sitting in the car with her, and I'm like cussing profusely. I'm like, Daniela. And it's almost like I'm talking to myself, but I'm talking to myself. I didn't even realize that my cousin was in the car because I was so shocked. So I'm like, Daniela, what the F? How can you be so effing stupid? How can you get effing pregnant for a guy that you barely know? Like, y'all, I am cussing myself out clean. Like, I am cussing myself out. Afterwards, I now, my cousin is like, I think she's like scared. So she's like, Daniela, I need you to calm down. I need you to calm down. I said, no, I gotta get rid of this. Like, that was the immediate thought. I'm gonna just be like honest, guys. The immediate thought was like, I gotta get rid of this. I can't keep this. Like, am I crazy? I can barely take care of myself. Like, I cannot have nobody's baby right now. Like, y'all, it was intense. So at this point, she was like, well, you need to call what's going on. So I call him. And my phone was connected to my cousin's car because sometimes I would play music. We would play music in the car or whatever. So it was connected. So I'm like, hey, I'm pregnant. And he's like, wow, how many weeks? And I'm like, which is a thing I didn't know. Like they say 6 weeks, but technically it's been like 2 weeks since I saw my period. Well, a week and some change since I saw my period, but I guess they're counting it from the last time you had a period, right? So I'm like trying to explain this to him. I'm like, I can't keep this baby. And so y'all, I am like calling around the people that I like, my friends that live in Nigeria, as well as people who live outside Nigeria that I know that can help me, because I'm like, I have to flush this, whatever this out is, I gotta get this out of me. Like, I'm not trying to keep this baby. And this is the thing, on Redeeming Daniela, we are completely honest and transparent. Like, this is my truth. I'm literally just being transparent. Like, I was not trying to keep it. I'm like, I gotta get rid of this baby. Like, I'm sorry, this is not for me. So I go to an abortion clinic in Lagos, and my child's father meets me there, right? Because he's like, what? Because at first there was one in like another part of Lagos, and I was gonna go there, but it was a little further. So I found one that was like closer to me, and I was like, no, I gotta, whatever this is, it needs to like, it gotta go. So I call him and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm about to do. He's like, why are you trying to go there? So he like meets me at the abortion clinic, and he's just like, we can't do this. And so when I get to the abortion clinic, they essentially were telling me like I couldn't have an abortion because of the baby hasn't like officially like attached to the uterus, I think. I'm not a medical professional. This is what I was told. So they were saying that he couldn't, so I couldn't have an abortion just yet. I'd have to wait like 2 weeks till it's like officially planted. But I was like 98% pregnant at this point. Life was already forming in me. So I'm like, what the heck? And I want to give you guys some context. Around this time, they had just like overturned Roe versus Wade, and then Texas had just passed the heartbeat law. So I knew that if I went back to Texas and I was pregnant, it was quiet for me getting an abortion because I live in Texas. So I was actually trying to handle this while I was in Nigeria. So as I'm like trying to navigate this, he's like, we can't kill it. We have to keep it. We're Christians. I'm like, now you remember that we Christians, but whatever, we can't do this. So I'm like, okay, whatever. Since I can't even do nothing, the guy told me I have to come back in 2 weeks. I didn't have 2 weeks because I was literally going back to America that week. So I come back to the States. My child's father and I, we kind of just like that day, we kind of like said our goodbyes, because at that time he was planning to move somewhere else. America, I want to say Mother's Day weekend. At that point, I was like hiding. Like my dad, I was super nauseous because at this point I was pregnant for real. So like I was super nauseous. I just was tired. And context too, when I came back to America, my car was I had just got my car repoed, y'all. Yeah, I just got my car repoed. I did not have any money. When I say I didn't have any money, like my account was like, it had like $5 in it. Like I did not have any money. And on top of that, I lost my job, and I was trying to go back to my job because I took like a leave. I was trying to go back to my job. They was not having it. Like they was not trying to have me back. They was like literally making me jump through so many hoops. Like when I tell you the amount of, like, on top of that, I'm pregnant. So at this point, I don't know what to do. And I did miss a part in the story. So I did tell my cousin, which is not my younger cousin that I'm gonna get the blood test, but my cousin Emily that y'all see in my Nigeria vlog. I did tell her, and she was just like, I'll never forget. She told me that, don't get rid of this baby. This baby is gonna be a blessing in your life. Like he's gonna open so many doors and so much favor in your life. And I was like, I said no. She's like, have you had an abortion? I said, I've never had one, but I'm not like, I couldn't fathom keeping a child when I knew I couldn't take care of myself. And I think that really was what it was. It wasn't the fact that I did not want to be a mom, because I've always wanted to be a mom. I just could not fathom keeping a child when I couldn't barely take care of myself, as well as having a child with somebody that I barely even know. So that's like kind of like a little bit of background. So fast forward now, I come back home and I don't have a car. So I don't have a car, and I live in Texas, and I don't even live in Texas where the bus system runs. So I can't, it's like I am like stranded. So I don't have a car, and I'm hiding from I'm hiding from my mom because I don't want her to know that I'm pregnant. And it's not even for somebody that no one knows. This is from somebody that I met when I was in Nigeria. And another thing, I don't want people knowing that I was having unprotected sex, guys. Like, that's actually insane. So I'm like hiding from my mom, and I'm hiding from my dad. So my aunt finds out because yeah, basically my aunt in Nigeria, she finds out that I was pregnant, and she ends up like calling me and was like, who's responsible on some. So she calls my child's father. They have like a long conversation, and so my child's father ends up telling his mom. His mom calls me, and she's like, don't get rid of it, you know, it's okay. Like, it kind of like she's supporting the whole thing. And I'm in my head, I'm like, are these people nuts? Like, yo, we are out here, like, you do realize I don't even know your son. Like, your son don't even know me. Like this is, the whole thing was just crazy. So at this point, guys, I'm trying to figure out how to have an abortion. Like, I'm not even gonna lie. Like, I'm looking up states. I'm trying to call my like sorority sisters, and like one of my sorority sisters lives in New Jersey. I'm trying to figure out if I should take the pill. Like, I'm trying to figure out, because at this point I am adamant that I do not want this baby. Long story short, I end up, she's upset. My dad was even more upset, and it turned into like, are you sure that it's him? Because it doesn't even make sense. So they're like, who's the real father? Y'all, it turned into like, when I say drama, it was so much drama that I was contemplating unaliving myself, because I felt so much shame, nation. Like, I just could not believe. And you know, I'm someone who really tries to strive to live my life according to biblical principles, and I just could not believe that here I am, everything that I know about purity, about, you know, keeping yourself in marriage, all these things, here I am having a child with a man that I barely even know. Like, it honestly was one of the darkest times. And so I'm like, I don't want this child. I don't want this child. I don't want this child. I'm like talking to my friends, trying to figure out like what I can do. So my sister Martell flies me out to Memphis for a week, and she kind of was just like, girl, you've always wanted to be a mom. Like, you got this. Like, her and Walter were just really like, that was a great week, because they were really just pouring into me. Like, you got this. They were taking me out. Y'all, anything I wanted to eat, Martella was cooking, but I was still feeling very nauseous, and I had like a lot of heartburn. So but they were just very like loving and comforting, right? So after I come back from Memphis, I kind of like didn't have a car, and so I started like I got a car through Uber, and I started like Ubering, and I started working at Nordstrom Rack as like a sales associate, just to kind of keep myself afloat, as well as I was still pursuing my master's. So I was like still pursuing my master's, and then I was still like, so I kind of was just putting pennies together. And there was a day that I was like cramping. I think I was about 5 months. But let me backtrack to when I heard his heartbeat, when I did my first sonogram. So June 16th is when I did my first sonogram. I signed up for Medicaid, did my first sonogram, and I was like, oh my gosh. But I'm just going to be honest. I did cry a bit, because I did see I saw the baby and I heard his heartbeat, but I still didn't want him. Like, and the thing is that from the moment I got pregnant, I knew I was having a boy. I don't really know how to explain it. And I want to backtrack a bit as well. I feel like I'm jumping around. There was a night before I did the blood test. I remember sitting in my room, the room I was staying in when I was in Lagos. And I remember praying to God, like, you know, all those prayers we pray, like, God, please, I promise, if this pregnancy scare goes, I won't have sex again, all these things. And God, the Holy Spirit, like, distinctively told me that you're pregnant. Like, and I was like, no, I began to start rejecting. I was like, I come against this. I'm not pregnant in the name of Jesus. It's not me that's pregnant. God, I've told you. God, I beg. God, I'm sorry. I beg, please have mercy upon me. I can't be pregnant. And he was like, you are pregnant, sis. And there's some other things he told me, but I don't really want to get into that. But I specifically like heard the Holy Spirit tell me that you're pregnant. Anyway, so when I had the first sonogram June 16th, I was still like, I don't want this baby. Like, thank you. That was nice and emotional. That it's not for me. Like, I'm not trying to be a mom right now. Like, I want to be a mom, but not like this. I want to be a mom in the way that I had it in my head. The way I had it in my head was I was going to get married. I was going to have children. Like, that's how I had it in my head. It wasn't that I was going to have a baby like this with a man that I don't really know. In the meantime, guys, my child's father and I, we were still talking. Like, I guess like I said, at the time we were in a relationship. Like, we were still talking, like, how are you? What's going on? Like, we were having full blown conversations because at that time specifically, like, it was a lot of pressure that we need to get married, 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 that we need to get married. So, that's really where a lot of the pressure came from. Mind you, again, I was broke. I ain't had no money, y'all. For 5 months, my appetite started coming back. There was a day that I remember specifically, I was cramping. It's cramping like really bad, and I was just like, but I realized it's just essentially a part of like it wasn't like super bad cramps. It just felt like kind of like a pulling, really. So I was cramping. I was like, I'm like, ugh. I called Diamond. Her and I were like on the phone. I was like, I was cramping, but I thought I was having like a miscarriage. She's like, you want to have a miscarriage so bad? And I'm like, well, because I felt like, again, y'all, please don't judge me. Like, I felt like if I had a miscarriage, it would be a little bit better. So it was like a softer blow versus at least I didn't have a hand in like, doing the abortion or whatever, right? And she was just like, Neely, you just need to accept the fact that you're pregnant, kind of begin to start strategizing and figuring out your life moving forward. And I was just like, all right. So when I hit, I want to say about 6 months, which is crazy because 6 months is actually crazy. 6 months is when I finally accepted that, yo, you're pregnant, let's get it popping. So when I was 6 months, I started praying for my son. So I started finding and 5 months is when I found out that I was having a boy. And also to give like some context, around the time that I was pregnant with my child or with my son, that was around the time that a lot of my childhood friends were getting married. And so it was very like kind of shaming because I was at their weddings and I was like 6-7 months pregnant, like, or 7-8 months pregnant. Fortunately, like, you can't really tell, and I'll probably put some, like, maybe in the thumbnail, or I'll maybe insert some pictures, but like, you can't really tell, but I definitely was like embarrassed, to say the least, the fact that I was pregnant. And not only was I pregnant, and not only was these aunties asking me questions, I didn't even have anything to really tell them. Like, I couldn't even tell them if I was in a relationship, because my child's father and I were just like, it was just one day we were hot, one day we were cold, and it's not completely his fault, it's my fault too, because it was just so many emotions from both sides. So it was like, we were up, we were down, we were up. So I couldn't really tell them if we were engaged. I couldn't really say that he was my husband. He was just my child's father, and I will say I was very like, I felt very like shamed and embarrassed, because I had a child and I wasn't married, like, and I was pregnant, I was visibly pregnant and I wasn't married. And people who I grew up with, like, as far as like their moms and like that knew me, and it just was kind of like a shock, because it's like, I wouldn't, like, a lot of people was like saying like, I wouldn't expect that it was you, Danielle, that would have a child and you're not married. Like, it was, yeah, it was a very dark time. Like, finally accepted that I was pregnant at 6 months. That's when I started praying for my son. That's when I started thinking of names. Started putting names together, what I wanted him to be named. That's when the Holy Spirit started kind of ministering to me, like, who he is, what he carries, how I need to be a mother to him. I began to like literally start buying clothes, start buying diapers. I just kind of like accepted it, and see, this is your cross, you're gonna have to bear it. Like, you're pregnant, it is what it is. I do have to have a side caveat that Diamond's mom actually, like, the weekend, I want to say maybe a week after I came back from Nigeria, Diamond's mom, Ifeanyi Gigi, had to come and get me for like, I want to say a weekend, because I literally like, I felt like my head was about to bust, and I was in my closet crying profusely. Like, when I say that when I was pregnant, it was one of the darkest times. I would cry a lot. Like, I cried a lot. I cried a lot because, again, I could not believe that it was me. And I felt a lot of condemnation. I felt a lot of shame. Like, I felt like God was like, this is it. Like I was so embarrassed. But anyway, guys, when I started accepting, I started praying for my son. I started laying my hands on my stomach. I would pray for him. I would prophesy to his life. I would think of names. And I finally, his dad actually named him his first name. His dad gave it to him. His middle name, I gave it to him. And then, so we kind of just did that. And that's essentially like the gist of my pregnancy story and how I found out I was pregnant. Now, we're gonna move on to the labor and delivery. Hey Siri, FaceTime Daddy Angel. That Tylenol didn't do anything. The pain was so excruciating. FaceTime Daddy, that works.